Hello, everybody. Good evening. My name is Marcelo Bucater. I'm the drum department chair here at LACM. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest tonight. An amazing musician that has been inspiring generations for a lot of years now. I would like to read some of his credits. He played with Maynard Ferguson Big Band, Gino Vanelli, Tanya Maria, David Lee Roth, Joe Satriani, the NBC TV show Friends for all the 10 years. What else? The list goes on and on. Britain's loudest band, according to him, Spinal Tap. That sounds right, huh? Ringo Starr All-Star Band. How about that? For the past, you make the math, since 2008. Uh-huh. And he just won, he told me that he just won the Modern Drummer Readers Poll, Best All-Around Drummer 2023. Yeah. So, it's my pleasure to introduce you guys, Mr. Gregg Bissonette. Thank you.
Marcelo, thank you everybody for being here. What an honor to be here. I never saw this part of the school before. This is a cool place to hang out and do a seminar. I'm very honored too that my companies all are supporting this. My drum company Dixon, my cymbal company Sabian, Vic Firth Sticks, LP Percussion, DW Pedals, and someone tonight is gonna win a set of these really cool direct sound headphones. They supported it too. And LP and let's see, Sabian, Dixon, direct sound, Vic Firth, and I got them all. Anyway, I know that I got a few texts from some former students. If I could just ask right now, not to embarrass you, I'm not gonna ask you to play, but if you're a former private student of mine, would you please come up to the front, real quick? All right, what's happening? I just want to say, what's up? It's been a long time. I've been great, thank you. Yeah, man.
40 years.
40 years. At my house?
Yes. Granada Hills.
Oh my gosh, I haven't lived in Granada Hills since 1983. Bob Marino! Thank you for being here. Where do you live now?
Los Alamitos.
Los Alamitos. They have a racetrack there. You look so familiar too.
I left my sticks at your house.
You left your sticks at my... I still have them. Tell me your name again. Peter, dude. No, what's your last name? Yes. We only did a couple of lessons, right? In the late 60s. I just wanted... What's that? 1860s. And Adam Elisi, when you were going to Cal State Northridge, you and I got together, you were like 18 years old, and now you're 21. But this guy, I can't take credit for it, but aren't you the drummer on the Golden Globes? This guy's playing on the Golden Globes. The reason I wanted to have students come up and announce themselves is because I love to teach. And I had great teachers. Dave and I were just talking backstage about Steve Houghton. And so Steve was my teacher in college, and Dave and Steve just did a thing over in China a few years back teaching. My degree in college was music ed, and I love, what was yours, jazz ed? Jazz studies. So you can't teach jazz in a school, but you can sure play on the Golden Globes, right? What do they say about jazz? They say, I just did a thing last week up at Drumeo, and the guy there said, he said something about jazz. He said that some great jazz player had said that the worst thing you can do is try to think and really dissect jazz when the idea of jazz is just to go and create. But yet everybody in colleges wants to dissect it, which we do because we're educators. But guys, thank you for coming up. And party on. Who's done drum corps? 1, 2, 3. Who did rudimental contests when they were in high school? Rudimental drum contests. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was a big thing for me. I really am thankful that I had great teachers and that I had teachers that, my dad was a drummer and he didn't ever take lessons. He never learned, the difference between traditional or how to hold matched a certain way. He just said, you come to my gigs, you can sit in on my gigs, but I want you to get with a teacher from the Detroit Symphony where we grew up. I want you to learn how to read. I want you to learn your rudiments. I want you to learn how to set up big band figures. And my goal when I was a kid, what I always prayed about from the time I was about 13, was that I could be the drummer in Maynard Ferguson's band. And so I went to the school where it was sort of a farm club, for like baseball farm club. My nephew is on the Pirates, Pittsburgh Pirates. He went to a farm club for baseball, Baylor in Texas, and that's where baseball teams pick a lot of their players. Max Muncy on the Dodgers went there, a lot of guys. So I went to a farm club sort of college in Texas, North Texas State, and I was telling Dave that's where I studied with Steve Houghton. And he really got me into articulating long and short and setting up figures in a big band. So my dream was to play with Maynard Ferguson. And the last thing I want to say about dreams and prayers and what you want to do with your life is I really think there's a pie or a cake or a circle. And half of that circle, half of that pie is how you play and how you hold your sticks, how you tune your drums, what kind of drums you have, and if you can read and, if you can set up figures and if you can make cheat sheet charts. When I was hanging with Dave in France, Dave Beyer and I was playing with Toto. Jeff Porcaro had passed away, and Simon Phillips was the new drummer in Toto. Well, Simon hurt his back, so I did a 4-month tour in Europe, and we played in France, and Dave was with Melissa Etheridge, and I was with Toto, and the bands got together and hung out. John Shanks was playing guitar for Melissa, and hey, how come Mike didn't come up when I said students? Where's Mike Holzer? Oh, you're a current student, so you didn't come up? Is Kyle Dorney here? How come you didn't come up? Oh, is your dad here? Where are you? Get up in the front here. There's seats up in the front. There's some pretty girls in the front. Man, oh no, you're married now. You just got married. So, Kyle, Mike. Kyle's a North Texas drummer. Yeah, North Texas. Gotta love North Texas. So that pie I was telling you about, that pie, half of that pie is how you play. The other half of the pie doesn't have anything to do with how you play. It has everything to do with what kind of person are you? You can get so much knowledge here about drumming, about music, but you can also get you're in the LA greater metropolitan area, Pasadena. I remember the David Lee Roth band. We did all our rehearsals here and all our pre-production rehearsals here. Pasadena, that's where Van Halen started, and the Red Ball Jets and Mammoth. And anyway, so you're in LA, and one of the other sides of the coin, the other side of the pie, are people skills. What kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person that people are going to want in their band? Because there's a lot of drummers, believe me, a lot of drummers that are fantastic, and they can play any style, and they can read, and they have great time, but you get them on a tour bus, it's, as they say in Mexico, no bueno. They are a pant load. That's another way of saying it. But you don't want to be a pant load. You want to be somebody that's really cool, that lifts people up, not puts people down. A lot of musicians, I found out, I'm 64, I moved here when I was 22, and in the last 42 years, they said there'd be no math. I have learned that people that aren't cool people that don't lift people up, people that put people down and think that's going to make them look cool, if they call somebody out in a rehearsal, you're rushing, bro. Don't tell a guitar player they're rushing in front of the whole band. Wait until there's a break and say, bro, I'm playing with, call him bro, first of all, that always works. Hey, bro, I'm playing with some loops and you are just not helping me. I have to turn you down in my in-ears because could you try to just get in sync with me? Because I have to play with this loop. So that's the way to do it. Don't call somebody out in front of other people because they're going to get defensive. Don't be someone that puts people down and think that makes you look cool. It makes you look insecure because most of the personality issues I've dealt with in the music business and in life comes from people that are insecure and they think that's going to make them cool. That's not the way to go. And so try to be a light. Try to be someone that lifts people up. Try complimenting people in your band, people that you jam with. Say you're on a recording session, a demo session, a rehearsal, a gig. Try finding the good in people and complimenting them. That's just part of being a cool person to hang out with because that tour bus turns into like a vacuum-packed submarine really quickly. And you want to try to be someone that lifts people up. So we're going to have a bunch of questions, I hope. And Dave and Marcelo mentioned that maybe Marcelo can take a microphone around. Start thinking now about some questions because I never really know which way to steer my drum clinic. I love doing drum clinics. One of the coolest things about being in Maynard Ferguson's band at 22 was that every week, because he played a lot of high schools, colleges, theaters, we would separate off. When I saw the Stan Kenton band, when I was about 14, there was an 18-year-old drummer with Stan Kenton, and he had a beard and really long hair. Anybody know who that would be? Ralph was in Don Ellis's band, but I'm thinking Peter Erskine. And I'm sitting in this room, and Stan Kenton says, okay, all the drummers go in this room. And I followed Peter Erskine into this room. And he was doing a drum clinic. And then when I got with Maynard, we did drum clinics. And the whole band split off. My brother was the bass player, and he'd go into a room with bass players. But Ralph, man, I first heard Ralph when I was about 15 in Detroit, Michigan, and Ralph was playing with the Don Ellis Orchestra. And of course, he played with Zappa and Al Jarreau, and what a great professor here. How about a hand for Ralph Humphrey? I miss that guy. I remember when Evening the Odds came out. How many of you have Evening the Odds? The book, Evening the Odds. You go to Los Angeles College of Music and you don't have, nobody has Evening the Odds? 1, 2, okay. I heard 3, 4. I remember when that book came out and Ralph helped me through it because I was just so into trying to learn like the Ralph Humphrey, Terry Bozzio, Ainsley Dunbar, Terry Bozzio, I said that name, Vinnie Colaiuta, Chad Wackerman, masters at playing with Zappa, the Zappa drummers, right? And I just said, Ralph, man, I want to take a lesson and learn how to do some different things in 7 and 9 and 11 and 15. And then I was doing a clinic, and this is down at Musicians Institute. I was doing a clinic, and he was there. I said, Ralph, you want to do a little drum duet? He comes up and he goes, yeah, man, let's play an 11. You're throwing me under the bus here, bro. I was hoping for 4-4. We'll trade some 8s. He goes, let's trade some 8s in 11. I said, Ralph, come on, man. He goes, come on, let's do it. I said, how are we dividing it? Terry Bozzio once told me that it's all 2s and 3s. I said, man, I did this gig with Nathan East and Steve Lukather over in, where's Dracula from? Vlad the Impaler, Romania. So we play in Romania at this Romanian jazz festival with this guy that's the world's foremost harp player, like this crazy harp. Anyway, the song was in 17. And he says, well, Lukather, you play a drum solo. He's going, you play a guitar solo. He's going, 17. Nathan, you play a bass solo. And he played with Herbie Hancock and everything. He goes, 17. And then he said, and take drum solo. He left a little pronoun out. Instead of take a drum solo, take drum solo. I said, how would you be dividing 17? He says, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, like everyone else. But luckily, I did what Ringo does. People, I was at Drumeo, I was talking about Ringo. They wanted to know about Here Comes the Sun, right? Now, you know George Harrison was way into going to India, the Maharishi, Ravi Shankar, on sitar, alaraka, on tablas. Here comes the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Well, I know for a fact Ringo was not counting. None of the Beatles were counting. Here comes the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Here comes the sun, sun, sun. Here it comes. Ringo doesn't count. I've been double drumming with him now for 21 years. He doesn't count like 7 or 5 or 1 or anything like that. He listens to the vocals. And the vocals are, everybody, 1, 2. Here comes the sun, sun, sun. Here we come. Here comes the sun, sun, sun. Here we come. 1. Here comes the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. We, as students, at colleges and universities and music educators, we count, we transcribe, we write things out, we teach. Ringo saw me writing a bunch of notes. I have our drum tech with Ringo's band, Jeff Jonas, made me this cool black box out of wood. He painted it like matte black, and he put a little light in there that nobody in the audience can see. And I flipped through file card notebook stuff of every song in the set. And Ringo says, "What are you doing with that notebook, writing in that notebook, brother?" That's my Ringo impersonation. And I said, well, I'm making notes, because in the all-star band, there's been everyone from Edgar Winter playing Frankenstein and Free Ride, Rick Derringer playing Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo and Hang On Sloopy, Colin Hay from Men at Work, I come from a land down under, who can it be knocking at my door? Thank you very much. Let's try that again. Is this a room full of drummers or what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Who can it be knocking at my door? That's what I'm talking about. So, and then you got Steve Lukather. We do Rosanna, Hold the Line, Hold the Line in Africa. And so everybody, I said, Ringo, all these guys have their own endings. Nobody fades out live, except once I saw my pal Stan Lynch with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They did fade outs, and everyone was like, wow. But in David Lee Roth's band, he would say, we need big endings, man. So we do Panama, Panama, oh, 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 ow, 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 bow, and you just pull out all the stops. Panama. Have to do ba-da-boom at the end. You got to go ba-da-boom so the guitar players can go ba-wap. They put their backs to each other. Ba-da. That was an 80s thing. But anyway, we didn't fade anything out. So I said, Ringo, they have endings. All these people have endings to their songs, but they change them a lot. When Dave and I, in what year was that, Dave? 95? 95 in Paris, France, ta-ra-ta-ta, Melissa Etheridge, and Toto. And so the ending for Rosanna, David Page, solo main, 2, 1, 2, 3, ba 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 couldn't remember that, and it would change a lot. So I said, Luke, how are we going to end Rosanna? You know, come on. He goes, well, let's just do an easy way. So he's playing a solo, and I look over to Ringo, and I go, 1, 2, second, ba 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 ba, dum blah, ba 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 ba. Ba, ba, look at me now, look at me now. I'm going to practice real hard. Get a gig, and make some cash. So we do those kind of endings. So Ringo says, so what you're writing down are these endings? I said, yeah, because they change things all the time. And he said, this is a Beatle. He said, well, keep making those notes on your cowbell, brother, and cue me, because I don't want to think about it. I also remember in Rosanna, this is my hero. This, besides my dad, who was my hero in life, he was a drummer, and my mom played jazz vibes in my dad's band. My dad was my cartage guy out here in LA for 18 years. And my mom would read, before the iPhone, what was it called? Thomas Brothers map. I'm showing my age. So my mom, make a left on Sunset, make a right on Cahuenga. Sepulveda. And so, where was I going with this? So my dad, help me out here. I can't remember where I parked my car. Porcaro. You say Porcaro, I say Porcaro. Tomato, Porcaro. Let's call the whole thing. I was going somewhere with this. Help me, throw me a bone.
You said Ringo was your hero and your dad was your hero too.
Yeah, Ringo was my hero and my dad was my hero, and I completely lost my train of thought. But the ending to Rosanna. So Ringo says, brother, what should I play on Rosanna? I said, play whatever you want. It's the Ringo Starr All-Star Band. You know, it's not the people in the band's name. He says, I'm asking you, man, what should I play? Because I don't do all that tickly left hand stuff, you know. I said, well, I'll do all that. Don't worry, I'll do that. I said, I'll just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then the chorus. Oh, Rosanna, meet you all the way. Oh, Rosanna, yeah, oh, me. I said, don't worry, I'll do all that tickly stuff. What should I play, brother? Well, why don't you just go boom, ba-bop, boom, boom, bop. And he goes, I don't do all that. I said, why don't you just go zoom, bop. He says, is that okay? I said, is it okay? You're Ringo. He says, because I just want to have fun. He doesn't do it for the money. He doesn't need money. He wants to see people with pink Sgt. Pepper suits. That was his color. He said, I used to get a lot of grief for the pink. But he'd wear the pink Sgt. Pepper. There's people in the audience with pink Sgt. Hey, brother, all right. Yellow submarine cutouts, and we love you, Ringo for president, all this stuff. That's why he tours, because he loves giving to the audience, and the audience gives back. I said, just play that groove and have fun. He said, what about ba-ba, 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 blah. I said, I'll do the don't worry, just let's go ba-ba, ba-ba. Yeah, he was all excited. So the first rehearsal, Steve Lukather, you know, he's been in Toto since probably 1978. He's never heard this before. But the cool thing about the All-Star Band is we do different versions of these songs. We're not trying to be just like the record cover band. We're trying to do our own versions. So Ringo, because he listens to the vocals, is meet you all the way, right? He decides to go with the vocals. And Lukather goes, whoa. That's cool. I love it. Because he just did it his own way. It's like if you're in a band and your guitar player or bass player says, I got this riff. Dum, 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 dum. He could have just gone boom, 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 boom. But he chose to play rhythmically, melodic, with what they were playing. Now there's a lot of controversy going around. controversy. Prince. Come on, guys. I had a double espresso before I came up here. I don't know about you guys, but gotta wake up. Come on, man. Anyway, I'm joking, kidding. But anyway, the whole thing is you gotta play rhythmically melodic. There's a lot of controversy. The drummers are saying, well, Ringo had 3 toms, because he had the maple kit from on the road, on the roof with Get Back. And he had tea towels too. But Ringo has told me many, many times over the last 20 years, because he's a lefty, he started on his floor tom and went up. Well, I believe him because he has a great memory and he was there. There were no cameras like there were on Get Back. So there were no iPhones, that's for sure. So he says he started on his floor tom and went up. When I put my headphones on, I hear tuku 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 tuku. It goes down. So there was this thing called Drummers for World Hunger that the late great Dom Famularo, let's have a hand for Dom Famularo, put together a couple years ago with 104 drummers. And Ringo said, I'm not playing Come Together again. I did it on the album. I'll go boom, boom. And Jim Keltner, you go, and Gregg, you do the toms. So he's told me he starts on the floor and goes up. So I tuned my floor tom high, kept the middle one middle, and tuned the rack high first tom as low as I could. So it went, doo-goo-doo-goo-doo-goo-doo-goo. I felt like I'm respecting what he said. But in the day, in the 60s, especially early 60s, calfskin heads, plastic heads, weather, the drums were stored a different way. I believe that he said that he started here. So anyway, my bottom line point here is that if you're in a band and your guitar player, your bass player, your keyboard player, singer, whatever, comes up with a riff, try to come up with some musical parts. Like when Ringo, who knows where Ringo got this idea? There are places I remember, 1 hi-hat per bar. There are places I remember all my life, and then others have their moments. The lovers and friends, but this beat. Any idea where Ringo got that idea? 1 hi-hat per bar. It takes a lot of discipline to play 1 hi-hat per bar. Anybody? For this free set of direct sound headphones, if you have the answer, but it has to be the right answer. Where did Ringo get the idea of playing 1 hi-hat per bar? Well, he had his hand up first.
It was like an old soul rock and roll recording. I think the guy's name was Ben.
Say that a little louder.
It was an old soul rock and roll recording, American artist, and he took the beat from the song. The guy's name was Ben or something.
The guy's name was what?
Ben something.
Van? Ben.
Ben.
No, you're really close, but you got to have the right answer. Anybody else? Yes. Oh! Say that again. So you guys could split these phones. You can have the right side and you can have the left side. So both of you come on up on stage. We're going to have a playoff here. Okay, so you said he got it. Don't be shy. Come on, we're all drummers. What are your names? Mike. David. Come on up, please. The angel Michael and the King David. We're going to go biblical. Okay, so Michael, you go by Michael? Michael says it was an old classic American artist, which you're right, but it wasn't Ben. Okay, and then David said it was Anna. You're right. The guy's name was Arthur Alexander. He was the artist. He was an American artist, and he had a song called Anna. The Beatles loved doing covers of songs. So, Anna, one more thing, girl. Give back the ring to me, and I will set you free. Very good. Who said that? Okay, you're winning so far, David. You're winning so far. But now we're going to have a drum off. Whoever plays that beat the best gets the headphones. Michael, you go first. Come on, Mike. Yeah, you. Come on. Here we go. Now the audience is going to be the judge. This is like American Idol.
The Anna beat or the In My Life?
Could I possibly beg you to turn this mic on? Thank you. You don't need to ask any questions. So let's hear Anna in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, from Pasadena, California, Michael. Can you keep going? I'll sing. There are plays. You got to slow it down a little bit. That's too fast. Tempo is part of the gig here. Hold on. If you pick the wrong tempo, that's 10 points off. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Everybody. Some have gone and some have changed. All these places have their moment. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on right there. That's really, really good. Now, it's not fair to let David play knowing that the tempo is that tempo and knowing the bell part that you played so well. So, David, please come up. Got a pro drum hat on. That gives you 10 extra points. Where's pro drum located?
On Vine.
Very good. That's 5 extra points. So let's hear you play Anna by Arthur Alexander, because you called the song. Go for it. But you got to sing it. Yeah, that's your microphone. Bring it down. Say testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay.
Buckle my shoe.
Buckle my shoe. Ready? David from Pasadena, California.
That's it. And I know.
Give back the ring to me, and I will set you free.
Go with him.
Okay, so here's the deal. Are you a student at LACMA?
No,
Where do you live?
in Montebello, not too far from here.
Montebello.
Yeah.
And are you a student at LACMA?
I'm not, and I live just up like 2 minutes.
2 minutes up the road. How far is Pasadena from Montebello?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the deal.
25
They both did really, really well. And you don't live too far away. You're going to share these. Okay? There's no other, it's like, okay, King Solomon, I'm going to cut off the baby, split the baby in the middle, and no, don't kill the baby. Okay, it goes to you. So, split these up between the two of you. Exchange numbers. David, you wear them for 1 week. Make sure you clean them with alcohol. And Michael, you wear them for the next week. Sometimes you might want to do 6 months each. Whatever. You work it out. Weekends. You get Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You get Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Here we go. From Direct Sound, a set of headphones. Who's going to get them first, though? Doesn't matter. It's up to them. Okay.
I have a comment.
You have a comment? Who's I? Yes.
Also, it's worth mentioning that Stan Lynch took that beat and kind of...
Please come up here. Please. What is your name? Oh, oh, oh. Jamie's got a question. Wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Jamie, you're on the drum set. Ready? How about a hand for Jamie? Jamie mentioned that Stan Lynch, one of my best friends, the drummer from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, all those great hits, took a Ringo groove in my life and made a song out of it. So for a gift for you, if you get this right, a Sabian, what size are you?
Large.
Good, we have a large right here. Bucket of fish. So we have a Sabian shirt for Jamie if he can pick the right tempo and the right feel for what's the song?
Breakdown.
Breakdown by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamie. Yes! I don't care if you love me. I don't care if you don't. I don't know all the words, but that's the right group for the song. How about a hand for Jamie? Are you a student here at LACMA?
I am not.
Where do you live?
Culver City.
Culver City. You ever go to SoFi?
Yes.
That's in Culver City.
Yep.
Did you see any Rams games there?
I did.
The Rolling Stones? Taylor Swift. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good one, Jamie. We have one more Sabian shirt for someone else that might raise their hand or say, hey. That's all you get. Hey, who said hey? What do you got? Anyway, you got to have something you're going to bring something to the party here. David and Michael and Jamie have brought something to the party. So anyway, my point is that Ringo is my favorite song drummer because I love the Beatles. They're my favorite band. They're the reason I play the drums. When I was a kid in 1964, our family went to a drive-in movie theater. Raise your hand if you've ever been to a drive-in movie theater. All right. Raise your hand if you are over 40. Keep it up if you're over 50. Keep your hand up if you're over 60. Okay, I'm 64, so will you still need me? So, anyway, we went to the drive-in and we saw Hard Day's Night. And I saw the Beatles getting chased down the street by the girls. I'm going, this is incredible. And John, I should have known. That's to this day my favorite Beatles song. So, they're my favorite band. Ringo's my favorite drummer. But I also, when I was a kid, my mom and dad, I was sitting where that monitor is, and Buddy Rich's bass drum was right here. And they took me to Windsor, Canada, just on the other side of the Detroit River, to see Buddy Rich. And he's just going off, man, doing all kinds of, I'm not traditional so much anymore, but just playing his butt off. And we get home, and I'm just like, that was so cool. And I went down and practiced that night, because if you hear a great drummer, Buddy Rich, the greatest, if you hear a great drummer, you want to practice. People that say, oh, I was so intimidated, I wanted to go home. No, you want to practice. Buddy Rich inspires, right? So I went home and I practiced. But the next day, after dinner, I thought of something kind of wild. Every single day of my life, and I'm not trying to brag, but this is the family values thing that is still there, but kind of missing a lot of times, is I don't remember ever having, and I'm a working drummer, right? So like Hal Blaine talked about in the Wrecking Crew, sometimes he wasn't home for dinner. Sometimes he wasn't home till 11, 12 at night because he's doing a session, a 10 to 1, a 2 to 5, a 7 to 10, and gets home at 11. So I don't remember ever having dinner without my dad being here, my mom being there, my brother there, my sister there, and me sitting here. And we had dinner every night together. And afterwards, it would always be music time. So I said, Dad, I got to ask you something. And this is the night after we saw Buddy Rich. And I said, I just got this new 45. Raise your hand if you know what a 45 is. It's a single, right? Something on the B-side, I had this new 45 of a band called, raise your hand if you know the band, Sugarloaf. 3 people, 4 people, 5. Okay, they had a song called Green Eyed Lady. Bow, 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 bow. Bow, 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 bow. I said, Dad, I got a question for you, man. Check out this intro. Bow, 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 bow. I said, I asked him, I said, do you think Buddy Rich could do that? He said, are you kidding me? You sat right there 4 feet away from Buddy's bass drum. We saw a 2-hour concert, and he just ripped your hat off with all this cool stuff. You want to know if he could play that? Of course he could play that. Okay, just asking, But anyway, we'd go in and we'd put LP covers on the shag carpeting. And my dad would have a little nightcap, half a dozen beers, and we'd hang out, and he'd go, okay, let's dig some jazz. And we'd take brushes, and we'd put the brushes on these album covers, and we would just play. And I was like, 10 years old, but we'd listen to, Dave Brubeck, Stan Kenton, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Stan Getz, and we'd And my dad would sing horn parts. Ba, 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 doo, ba, 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 bow. And that's how I learned about big band. That's how I learned about small group. That's how I learned about the swing. And my dad said, I was hanging out with Davy Tuff once. Raise your hand if you've ever heard that name. Davy Tuff, when he was playing with Woody Herman. My dad went up afterwards and said, Davy, man, how you getting those cool cymbal sounds? I know you got a sizzle too, but on those ballads. And Davy said, man, I just kind of picture the fall and the leaves coming down from the trees, and it's just... And 6 or 8 beers later, my dad's going, come on, dig this one. I go, I'm going to go watch the Partridge Family. No, just dig some more. And we'd play brushes for another hour. That was my upbringing, you know. And so my dad would let me go to his gigs with him. And he'd say, okay, you want to come with me Friday night? Yeah, Dad. My dad, again, my hero. So I'd have the cymbals all polished up. I can't remember the last time I polished cymbals. I'd put the drums in the fiber case, the cymbals, and the snare drum thing, and the single pedal. Never had a double pedal then. And I'd get everything, and I'd put it in the VW bus, and we'd go, and my dad would play the songs like, Marcelo, you can relate to this, a little Jobim. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl with emphysema goes wild. He'd play all these songs, and in a satin doll, ba ba doo boo da, ah doo da 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 doo, ah doo ba doo da, ba doo doo da. And then it came time for a rock song. He'd go, Gregg, come over. And my dad would go to the bar and have a beer. I'm giving my dad a bad name here. He liked beer. It was Michigan, and a lot of beer drinkers in Michigan. So he'd go to the bar and have a beer, and I would play the rock songs. Now, we weren't really set up for rock. We had upright bass, accordion. It was electric. It was Cordavox, and a tenor sax player. No singer. But we played rockers like this. Jeremiah was a bullfrog, but no vocals, right? And we'd play other rockers like taking care of business every day. Name that band. BTO. What does that stand for? Bachman Turner Overweight. Taking care of breakfast, ham and eggs. No, anyway. So I'd play the rockers, Proud Mary, and then my dad would come back and he'd do the swinging. And so I was playing like some little clave, castanets and clave and then I start playing, on satin doll. My dad says no claves on satin doll. So on a swing tune, don't play clave. So that was my music education until I was 14, and my dad said, your mom and I are going to go to Spain in 3 weeks, and your Uncle Bob and Aunt Carol are going to come over and stay with you guys. But Gregg, you got the gig in 3 weeks on Friday night. I said, me? I was 14. I said, I hope I can do this. He goes, you're going to do great. Don't worry. Your Uncle Chuck is going to take you. You can set up. And I remember the first thing, before we started even the gig, this lady walks up. Excuse me. It's my Uncle Harry's 86th birthday. Please play Happy Birthday. And so the sax player turns around and goes, okay, happy birthday in 3, 1, 2. And I'm going, in 3? I hadn't had my Ralph Humphrey lesson yet. So I did a 3. So happy birthday to you. It was my introduction to odd times and polyrhythms at a young age. But anyway, I got really good, really fast at playing Happy Birthday, waltzes. In Detroit, a lot of Italians, a lot of Germans, a lot of polkas. In heaven there is no beer. Come on. That's why we drink it here. And when we're gone from here, yes. Hey, roll out the barrel. Who sang that, right? What's your name? Lou. You win the Sabian t-shirt, man. Roll out the barrel. Come on up here, Lou. Woo. Beer barrel polka. But the Italians played tarantellas. Same exact beat. Who can sing a tarantella? An Italian tarantella. And then we'd play for a bar mitzvah. And at a Jewish temple, you played a beat like this. Who can sing an aura? Come on, Hava Nagila, let's hear it. Hava Nagila, Hava Nagila, Hava. Da, 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 da. So I'm playing all these different styles, but it's kind of the same beat. Well, what beat is now my least favorite beat? 10 years ago, it was one of my favorites. Now, every single song I hear on the radio, or if I go to a bar, every single song. Ah! They've destroyed that cool beat. Anyway, the Grammys, Bad Bunny comes out. Okay, we need a new beat. So I'm talking a lot. It's time for you. Marcelo, do you have that microphone? That wonderful remote microphone? How about a hand for Marcelo for putting this together? Where did he go? We lost Marcelo. We need you to be the master of ceremonies. Are you ready? You have the microphone? Okay, there it is. How about a hand for Noah? You will build a boat. It's going to rain. It has been raining. We needed Noah. Anyway, that's pretty cool. It's a corded microphone. So who, for this free Dixon drum kit, who has the first question? I'm just kidding. You don't really get the drum set, but here we go. Question right here. Thank you, Noah.
Hey, Greg, how you doing?
Good. How are you? What's your name?
Thanks. My name's Lily Juaneros Mace. I'm one of the guitar faculty here.
Say that one time a little slower.
Juaneros.
Your name is
Lily.
Lily, like the Munsters.
Yeah, so we have a lot in common, actually. I enjoyed your stories. I also got into the business subbing for my father when I was about 14. My father's a guitarist.
Wow. Here in L.A.?
No, actually in New Mexico.
New Mexico.
But I'm also the first woman to ever have graduated from the guitar program at UNT.
You're the first woman to ever graduate from the guitar program at UNT.
Yeah, so I'm the first
Where I
North
went-
Texas jazz female graduate. That was in 2004.
Wow. Do you remember the name?
I'm not 100% sure that's worth applauding over because women have been playing the guitar for a long time. So,
Absolutely.
I've learned this year after, I'm very proud of our shared school. It's been another 23 years, and now we have another woman graduating from the guitar program.
It's been that long?
That's my question for you. As someone, we have a shared lineage. We have a very diverse student base here and a lot of female players that are suffering from a little bit of lack of representation in terms of what their careers might look like because people who make it through the gauntlet are so few and far between. What do you think we can do to support young women as specifically studying jazz and studying rhythm section to help them get through college and into the business in a way that feels fair and safe to them?
Yeah, I did a jam session last night, Lily, at the Lucky Strike, that club on Highland and Hollywood Boulevard. And there was an amazing sax player. Her name's Katiana. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do, yes.
And she got up there with a bunch of dudes and just ripped it up. And Doug Pinnick from King's X was playing, and they did Superstition, and she just killed it. And then there was a female drummer that got up and played double bass like Slipknot. It was like, whoa! And then there was another female guitarist that just, more rock, not jazz. But do you play gigs around LA and stuff?
I have been gigging here and in New York since I was 15 years old. So yeah, I'm out and about. I've sat in a bunch of Broadway chairs, played with a bunch of jazz folks, play a lot of rock and roll.
Yeah, so I don't really know how to answer the question except that I would just say, keep doing what you're doing, keep gigging, keep going to jam nights, keep playing Broadway shows, play at Catalina's, play at the Baked Potato, do a lot of social media stuff, like post on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and everywhere you can. I just started a YouTube channel because I just wanted to. I did a Rick Beato show a couple years ago, and he said, you should do YouTubes. And so he got me into doing them. I do one every couple weeks. And Rick, here's the story about Rick Beato. Great jazz guitarist, Eastman School of Music, doctorate in theory, doctorate also in upright bass, I think. But anyway, he had 3 kids and a wife, and he's going, I don't know what I'm going to do to support my family. He started producing, like post-grunge. He started producing albums, but it really wasn't paying off. And somebody said to him, there's money to be made in YouTube. And he said the same thing I said to him. I said, that means I have to do a bunch of ads and promote some product I'm not into. He said, no, not anymore. And he shows me his phone. He shows me his Wells Fargo app and the amount of money that was going in to his phone from YouTube. But he has 3.9 million subscribers. I think I have 17,000 so far. But the thing is, the power, Lily, the power of, as George W. would say, the interweb is powerful. So start a YouTube channel. Do jams and post on stuff, because you can reach 200 people at the Baked Potato, but you can reach 200,000 people really quickly if you do things and post and get your friends to do the same thing, and then build up that kind of fan base. And I started something that you might think about too, is I was being told by a lot of people in LA, oh, the session thing is drying up. The session thing's not drying up. A lot of us are just getting older, and there's younger players that are being hired to do sessions. Do you know Andrew Sinowick?
I don't.
Okay, Lily, you should know and get to hang out with and go to the Baked Potato and Catalina's and get to know Andrew, because Andrew's the new top first call guitar player in LA. And he's not 64, but he's not 19. He's probably 40, 35, but he's on every movie from Spider-Man to you name it, every TV show, and he does albums, and he can play in any style. He can play like George Van Epps, Wes Montgomery, George Benson, Mike Stern, but he can play like Steve Lukather, Eddie Van Halen. He can do anything. But what he's doing a lot of is just being the guy that can read anything and can play any single style. So what guys like Tim Pierce, who's my age,
My father was Tim's teacher, incidentally.
What's your dad's name?
Steve Mace. Ask Tim
Wow.
about him.
Okay, well, there you go. So Tim Pierce decided, I don't really want to, be the guy. And so I'll pass that torch on to Andrew Sinowick. So I'm going to start the Tim Pierce online guitar school and have like Rick Beato, the bundles and stuff like that. But I want to do YouTube shows about playing guitar, talking about Tommy Tedesco and talking about people that, remember Jack Peterson?
Yeah, I know Jack well, or knew Jack well, yeah.
Yeah, so Jack was the guitar teacher at North Texas. He used to take big band charts, and the sax section, he'd give that to 5 guitarists. The trombone section, he'd give that to 5 guitarists. Some of it in bass clef, trumpets, B flat, he'd give those to, and he'd have guitar big band and reading ensembles. So Tim Pierce says, well, I'm passing that torch on to Andrew Sinowick. And so that's the guitar world. But Rick Beato has really branched out, and he's covering every instrument and stuff. So I'm just loving the fact that I get to do these videos. So I thought, well, why not? Since I have a place, one of my best friends has a studio in Sherman Oaks, right where the 101 meets the 405. And my brother is my favorite bass player, not to name drop, but he's been Elton John's bass player the last 12 years. Why don't I just make a video about, hey, if anywhere in the world, all you have to do is send files to our engineer. First of all, send a request to my engineer. Here's his email. And we can do 1, we can do 10 songs, whatever. Here's our rate. It's union double scale, which how many of you are in the musicians union? That's not good.
Yeah.
Lily is.
Yeah.
That's good. So in the musicians union, Tommy Tedesco, Hal Blaine, Carol Kay, they fought for something called double scale. Double scale in the musicians union is for a 3-hour session. Now it's $750 plus health and welfare and Social Security. But a lot of sessions I do, I'm going to be honest, are not union, but I still charge double scale. People say, well, I only have 1 song. You only have 1 song. And how about if I send you an MP3 of it and you learn it? And then you come in and do 1 take. What do I owe you? No, it doesn't work that way. How many of you have ever been through a divorce? The attorneys start the clock from the time they get in their car. Well, musicians can't do that. But I just say, no, you can send me an MP3 of your song, and I'll love to listen to it. But I'm not going to make my chart till I get to the session. And if we Zoom you, or we FaceTime you, or we Skype you, or whatever we do, or you're there in person, hopefully, let's talk it through. Let's get markers for the engineer. Intro, verse, B section, chorus, verse 2, B section, chorus 2. Breakdown, solo, vamp out. We got the markers. I make a chart. I'll even transcribe while I'm there what your drum machine or, whatever it is, BFD or whatever your Logic part is. I'll transcribe it, and I'll do take 1, what your demo has on drums. And then I'll do take 2, like I was in the band. I'm in your band, and I'm going to do it the way I would do it. Then I'll do take 3, kind of a wild take with different fills, and you'll have 3 takes. I said, but here's the deal. I live in Thousand Oaks, and my studio I record at a lot, not my studio, is in Sherman Oaks. Sometimes that can be an hour. So I say I have a 2-hour minimum. So instead of double scale, $750, that's how Hal Blaine set it up. You want to do one song? It's a session. That's 3 hours. The union's a good thing. And when you do Friends, that show is syndicated all over the world. So my brother and I got to do 10 years of that show. Thank God there's a musicians union, because once a year they send this check. It's called the Motion Picture Television Royalty Fund. And then there's also one for albums. It's called Phonograph, not that there's any Phonograph Fund. So that's always way less. Like Steve Lukather always complains, I just did records. I didn't do movies like Tommy Tedesco or Dean Parks or Tim Pierce or Andrew Sinowick. So it's like 4 times as much for the Secondary Markets Fund for movies. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. The union was a good thing, is a good thing, because if you play on a jingle, you get royalties for the rest of your life, a TV show, a movie, an album. So anyway, Hal Blaine, 1 song, 3 hours, a session. You can do a lot of music in a session. So I kind of make a deal. I say, okay, I'll do 200 an hour. Pretty fast. I might be able to get 4 songs in an hour. Don't charge by the song, because the minute you charge by the song, Lily, for a jazz thing or a rock thing or whatever, they could go, well, we need 5 overdubs. We need a solo. We need you to harmonize the solo like Brian May, and we need this and we need this and that song could take you 8 hours. Charge by the hour, because all we have is our time. Our time is our most valuable asset here on earth. And if someone's going to monopolize 3 hours or 2 hours of your time, they could do 1 song and we could do 20 takes. No, on this one, I want you to wash the crash. On this one, go to the bell on the chorus. On this one, I want you to do kind of a drunk drumming thing. I'll do whatever you want, but I'm going to be paid by the hour. So I guess where I'm going with this, Lily, is that, do that. Tell your friends to do that. Try to make a video and put it on YouTube or Instagram. Make it a short, or on Facebook. Make it a reel and just say, hey, here's an address. Send requests there. And then if they say, we want to book you, then we'll say, okay, send the files to my engineer, and then give us a deposit, half. And then when we finish the track, before we send you the finished track, I don't know who you are. You're in the middle of the other side of the world, but you know who I am. So send me the full thing and I'll send you the files. And it's been working for like the last 5 years. And we work a lot because you can take the power of the internet and really market yourself. So that's my advice for whether you're a man or a woman, you want to just make a living playing in any style, use the internet to the full ability. I hope I kind of helped answer your question.
Well, I think that's great advice. I'm 27 years into my career, so I'm pretty solid at this point.
So you're not worried about
I'm not
gigging,
super worried
but for
about
your
that.
friends.
My bills are getting paid. I think what I was asking is how can we as teachers make a space to share knowledge in a way that more women come into the business?
I think just have people use the internet for those types of ways,
Suggest that they use the
because
internet.
you can go to jam. I used to tell people, 30 years ago, when I would have a private student, and they'd say, how did you get the David Lee Roth gig? How did you get the Maynard Ferguson gig or Joe Satriani's gig? I said, well, it's all recommendation, but sometimes there's auditions. Steve Lukather recommended my brother and I to audition for Joe Satriani. We auditioned. Andy Johns, who was the producer for Led Zeppelin, an engineer, he auditioned us with Joe, and he said, okay, get these guys. David Lee Roth's gig was a huge cattle call, like 200 people. But because I could read and I had a drum head, I had a drum that had a Remo-coated head, this becomes a really great way to make notes, right? And Steve Vai was already picked for David Lee Roth's band. Billy Sheehan was picked first, then Steve Vai, and Steve says, "Hey, I want to show you part of this song we wrote." And I'm writing down on my snare. He goes, "Man, you can transcribe. Where did you learn to transcribe?" I said, "Well, North Texas." He said, "Yeah, I went to Berkeley." I said, "I know you did. And you played with Zappa." And because I could write and read rhythms and stuff, I got the gig. And then I went to David Lee Roth's place in Pasadena. And he said first, he goes, "Okay, these guys really like playing with you. What was your last gig?" And I went, "Oh, man, David Lee Roth is a hard rock band. I'm going to tell him, I'm going to be honest, Gino Vanelli," and he's a musicologist. He said, "Gino Vanelli, brother to brother, storm at sunup, just to the Gemini. I love Gino Vanelli. What about before that?" And I said, "Oh, no, I'm really going to be out of luck now because it's jazz." I said, "Well, the Maynard Ferguson band." And David Lee Roth said, "Maynard Ferguson, the high note trumpet player that covered Herbie Hancock's Chameleon and theme from Rocky?" I said, "Dave, you know Maynard?" He said, "Yeah." And he literally said, "If you can power that 18-piece big band, you can power the four of us. Welcome to the band. Payday starts Friday. Let's go get some Mex food." And that's how it went. That's a true story. Because that's how auditions kind of went. Live auditions. Nowadays, a lot of people, look at Journey. I mean, they picked their next Steve Perry singer from Instagram videos that he posted. He goes, "He sounds like Steve Perry." And Neil Sean hired him. A lot of things, as teachers, we can inspire people to go to jam nights, try to sit in, book gigs. Well, there's no gigs. Book your own gigs. Find somebody with a coffee shop and play real book songs, Be out there, but also be out there in the marketplace, but also use the power of the World Wide Web, www. So anyway, Lily, thank you for that first question. That was great. I don't know if I completely answered it correctly, but that's my take on it, and that's all I have is my take. Noah, do we have another question? It's always tough to ask questions because you feel like, oh, that's not a good question. Anyway, I could just, oh, you got a question. Yes.
Hey, Greg, it's Dave.
Dave Meyer, big hand for Dave. How many of you are students here? Raise your hand if you're a student here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many of you are not students here? How many of you are going to enroll now because you see what a great school this is? Dave, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, no problem. I was just going to ask you to talk for a second about how your jazz playing informs your rock playing and vice versa.
Wow, that is a great question, Dave. So a lot of people would come to my house for private lessons, and they would say things like this, and it was very frustrating. I'd have rock guys that played rock and didn't play jazz, and they said, "I want to learn how to play jazz." And I'd say, "Perfect. So do you like jazz?" I said, "Well, do you like Charlie Parker?" Never heard of him. "How about Miles Davis?" I never heard of him. "What about smooth jazz? What about Rick Braun? What about this?" Never heard of him. "Well, what about Weather Report?" "No, I heard them once, but I didn't really like it." Okay, so rule number one, if you want to be successful at a lot of different styles, it seems like common sense, but you have to like the style. Like, not just because I grew up with parents that were always playing jazz and always taking us to see bands, jazz bands. I just love jazz. I love Buddy Rich. I'm just going to talk drummers. I love Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson, Max Roach. One of the greatest teachers I ever had was Tony Williams. I studied with him for a couple of years before he passed. Shelly Manne, Peter Erskine, Elvin Jones. It just goes on and on. Art Blakey. But the bands that they played with, I loved the music. I loved Alex Acuna in Weather Report, heavy weather. So I told these people, you gotta really like the music first. I said, so here's a bunch of songs to listen to. Way before there was YouTube, I would tell them to go out and buy CDs, right? And they would. I said, why do you want to be better at jazz? You know, the answer I got the most was, well, I went to the Baked Potato and I heard Vinnie Colaiuta play a drum solo, and all these people stood up and clapped. When I play drum solos in my rock band, they don't do that. I said, that's why you want to play jazz? So people will stand up and clap. I said, that's not the best reason. You should want to play jazz because you really like the music. I would have jazz drummers, people that really only, you know, they would say things to me like, my goal is to be a post-bop small group guy. And never break a sweat and play that chord. I said, you want to live in Los Angeles and make a living doing that. Do you know what my mortgage is? Do you know what health insurance costs? I pay $14,000 a year for health insurance. Self-employed musician. You're not going to make $14,000 just playing in $50 jazz clubs. You got to want to play different styles because you want to. And they'd say, yeah, that's why I want to learn rock. Well, first of all, do you like AC/DC? No. Do you like Led Zeppelin? No. Journey, Genesis, the Foo Fighters? No. Well, if you don't like rock bands, and you don't like rock, you're not going to be a very good rock drummer. And I said, so what's the real reason you want to, as a jazz guy that spent his whole life, and now you're 30 years old, you want to play rock? What's the main reason? And they say, several of them said, because rock gigs pay more than jazz gigs. That's not a good reason. Rock tours pay better than jazz tours. Rock tours, great rock tours, pay better than great country tours. If you go to Nashville and you find out what some of these, not Taylor Swift, I have a 22-year-old daughter and I'm a Swiftie, because my daughter, I know every word to every Taylor Swift song. She bonused her band and crew $55 million last year. Okay, so Matt Billingsley, her drummer's a friend of mine. That's a high-paying pop rock gig that started as a country gig years ago. But most country bands out of Nashville, they don't pay very well. But rock bands, the pay, pop bands, the pay is a lot better. So don't just do it because the money's different. If you really love jazz, play jazz. My favorite jazz drummer is Bill Stewart, and he's killing it in Manhattan because but he also played funk with Maceo Parker from James Brown's band. He's a really well-rounded drummer. I told Bill a couple years ago, I went to see him play with his group, his trio. And it's funny, that trio is either Larry Goldings and what's the guitar player's name, Lily? Peter Bernstein. It's the Larry Goldings band with Bill Stewart and Peter Bernstein. Then the next night, it's the Peter Bernstein band with Bill Stewart and Larry Goldings. Then it's the Bill Stewart band with Larry Goldings and Peter Bernstein. But I said, Bill, I told Ringo about you yesterday. Hey, Bill goes, you told Ringo about me? What did you tell him? I said, well, I played him the intro to John Scofield, We. He said, you played Ringo my intro? What did he say? And I said, well, he loved those crush rolls. Ringo liked my crush rolls? Yeah, we play Pick Up the Pieces every night because our bass player is Hamish Stewart from Average White Band. And that night, Ringo started going. He was into it. And Bill Stewart kept going, you told Ringo about me? And he was into it. It was cute, and it was cool. But he loves lots of different styles, but he's kind of the guy. He's Peter Erskine's favorite jazz drummer. Years ago, I asked Peter, who's your favorite jazz drummer? He said, Bill Stewart right now. And so Tony Williams was a great example, Dave, of a guy that told Miles Davis that he should be into rock and Zeppelin and the Beatles. And then Miles Davis got really in, like Bitches Brew and all the great fusion albums. Tony Williams pioneered fusion because he was 17. He was playing drums with Miles, but he got Miles into rock. And when Mike Stern got the gig playing guitar with Miles, Mike told me that Miles went right over to his amp and turned it all the way up and said, use that whammy bar, man. I didn't hire you to play with a jazz tone, rock. This is my, well, he probably said it like, I didn't tell you to play with a jazz, turn that thing up, play like that. Miles was not known to yell. But anyway, so Mike Stern loves all different styles. So in answer to Dave's question, the first thing I learned about how jazz playing can help your rock playing and how rock playing can help your jazz playing is to somebody when I was in college, where Lily and I went in Texas, said, his name's Kurt Covington. He was in a band with Scott Henderson called Tribal Tech. He said, Bissonette, there's only two kinds of music, really. What kind of music, Kurt? He said, duple and triple. That's pretty heavy. If you think about any style, rock, Afro-Cuban, Brazilian, country, second line, metal, Slipknot, whatever, pop, it's either duple based or triple based. And the triple based, I hated playing my drum lesson every week because it was the Jim Chapin book. Jeremiah was a book. And my mom said, nope. She'd flash the light. She'd be upstairs cooking. In Detroit, we had basements. Out here, garages, hence garage bands. She'd flick the light. She said, your teacher, Mr. Myron McDonald, said we have to stop lessons. I'm paying $6. We're paying $6 a half an hour for lessons. It's 1972. And he says, you're not playing that blue book with the red binding, that Chapin? Oh, yeah, Chapin, Mom. I don't like that book. Yeah, well, you have to do it or you're not going to be able to take lessons anymore. So I worked on Jim Chapin. I couldn't have gotten into North Texas if I didn't know how to play the Chapin book. But what I did glean from that book was the ability to swing. And at sound checks, Ringo's always goofing around, playing straight eighth notes here and swinging here. And when I hear him play certain songs like Boys, I Want to Be Your Man, he's kind of swinging, but it's kind of straight like Earl Palmer. And I really realized that that is where the shift happened. In the 50s, early 60s, the swing, the jazz drummers weren't able to go, way back up in the woods among the evergreens. They had a little bit of swing to it. So in answer to your question again, I think that if you listen to ZZ Top, that is a swing feel. If you listen to Hot for Teacher, actually, Alex Van Halen didn't do all those little ghost notes. He got the idea from Billy Cobham's Spectrum, Quadrant 4. And Billy was going. Pasadena's own Lee Sklar on bass, Tommy Bolin on guitar, Jan Hammer on keys. That was what Alex Van Halen listened to, and he did Hot for Teacher and doubled it up here. And kept it straight here. But that jazz thing, I mean, I remember being at an Alan Holdsworth concert once, and Vinnie Colaiuta and Scott Henderson and Jeff Berlin were playing at an Alan Holdsworth concert at the Country Club in Reseda. And I look around, and then there's David Lee Roth, Michael Anthony, Eddie Van Halen, and Alex Van Halen at a Holdsworth concert. And to be honest, I couldn't find one. It was so advanced and so out there. But the next year, Eddie Van Halen produced an Alan Holdsworth album. Those guys liked Mahavishnu, all kinds of different stuff. And if you learn jazz, you're going to be a better rock drummer. If you learn rock, you'll be a better jazz drummer. I know most rock drummers, it's from when I was a kid, it was kick drum and snare drum first, and the hi-hat was an afterthought. And all the jazz lessons I took when I was a kid was focus on the ride cymbal. Even Tony Williams, Jeff Hamilton, Steve Houghton, the ride cymbal's number one. The hi-hat is next, and then the kick and snare should be under a little bit. So a lot of rock drummers played when I was in college. They played jazz. They thought, oh, jazz, it's real quiet. Like, and then they'd play their kick and snare. And most of the jazz drummers, when I was in college, they were used to bang, dang, dang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, even. And they're playing like this. No, the balance was all wrong. Rock, kick and snare. Bat,
Back in black, in the sand. I bet you know it's great to be.
boom, boom, So just learn the basics of what differentiates the styles. But triple and duple, a lot of rock drummers can't play a shuffle because they're only playing duple stuff most of the time. A Texas shuffle. I went down to Austin and I got to play with Eric Johnson last month, and the first thing he said, let's start with a shuffle. It's Austin, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I worked with this other cool band in Austin, and Derek was the other guitar player in Double Trouble, and he always wants to start the jams with a shuffle. So just learn how to do a Texas shuffle. Everybody sit up straight and put your hands on your thighs, and just put your hands together like this. Everybody. Now 4 on the floor with your right foot. While you're doing the hands. Okay. Hi-hat on 2 and 4. Now, just having that coordination doesn't make that a great Texas shuffle or any kind of a shuffle. What gives it the feel is the way that you accent. And on a Texas shuffle, if you ask Chris Layton, the drummer in Stevie Ray Vaughan's band, or in Archangels, he says it's tip, shoulder. You kind of spank that ride on 2 and 4. And it's not this. It's 2 and 4 on the rim shots. That gives it a feel. So that same thing goes to Steve Houghton. Dave and I were talking about Steve Houghton. When I used to go hear him on recording sessions, he would talk about the shoulder of the stick on the hi-hat and the tip of the stick. Tony Williams talked about this. Not just this all the time, or not just this, but how to get up. Jeff Porcaro used to do that all the time. Sometimes, if you're trying to go with your wrist, it's going to kill you. But if you do kind of a molar, kind of a tuck, 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 it has an accent, and it has more of a pulse. So learning jazz, I think, really helps when you're playing rock. I think learning how to rock can really help jazz, but just listen to it all. Years ago, when I was in Maynard Ferguson's band, we played in Puerto Rico, and I'd never heard of Songo. It was kind of a new thing in America, because when you think about it, the Cuban Missile Crisis years ago, Kennedy and Castro, Cuba, America, the airwaves were blocked. And I know a lot of guys can tell you about this here at school too, but we in America didn't hear about a lot of salsa. Dizzy Gillespie was bringing things in, but they also didn't know about rock and the Beatles. Luis Conti told me, I'm going to dilute the story a little bit, but he was in a movie theater and accidentally the film went to this reel and they had like this advertisement for the Beatles and they were all like, whoa, what is this? You know, this is the music of freedom and people, and it was like contraband at the time. It was like, no, that's wrong. You know, don't get into that. And so all these styles started to come around when bands like N.A. La Banda, I remember playing in Cancun with Larry Carlton at the Cancun Jazz Festival. And in the lobby of the Holiday Inn, Changuito, the guy that pioneered Afro-Cuban drumming, somebody had left a Simmons 5 kit in Havana, and he's playing. And he's got this bass drum, a Simmons bass drum. Whoa, he's playing a bass drum while he's standing up. And he started playing beats like this, you know. So I asked him, do you teach? And I had a translator, Michito Sanchez, who lived in Van Nuys. And Changuito, at his hotel, there were Cuban guards standing post because he was a national treasure. They wanted to make sure he didn't defect and come into America. But he kind of snuck out and taught and gave Carlos Vega and I and several other drummers lessons. This is like, I don't know, 1991, 92. And the whole style of Afro-Cuban drumming and clave, when I was with Maynard Ferguson, I didn't know what clave was. And I'm walking around the streets and asking people, playing with my Sony Walkman cassette player, playing at a restaurant, and I'd say, where's clave? ¿Dónde está clave? And they're, oh. And I had translators helping me with the Maynard band. They'd say, how do you know where the clave is? And they'd say, well, we're listening to things like the bongo bell. That bongo bell states a clave. Do, da, do. That's the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. If it's 3-2, Jimmy Brantley, who's a great, great drummer, who lives in Pasadena, he has been my Afro-Cuban teacher since 1998 when he came here, and he was showing me this 3-2 clave funk beat. And the thing about 3-2 is that he was taking it, again, duple to triple. This is jazz to rock, how all styles relate. He took the that's the same clave, but it's swung. I mean, they won't say that if you are taking Afro-Cuban lessons. They'll just say, well, the 6/8, I never called it 6/8, because to me, it's 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Even Jimmy Brantley says, we don't count slow. 1, 2, 3. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. They're always counting in double time. But for me, I just want, anytime I can make anything 4/4, 12/8, it saves paper when you're transcribing. And this, duple and then so the first lesson, Changuito says, in broken English, he says, the bata, he says, I want you to learn this rhythm. Everybody clap your hands. 2, 3. We're going to go 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count now. 2, 1, 2. Yell it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So he starts doing this. And then he does this. So they're great clapping, bunch of drummers out there. So that's a great example of three and the jazz influence in Africa. If you think, back in Africa many, many years ago, triple. To Cuba. To all I got to say is I had just taken a lesson with Jimmy Brantley. I'm in Dallas, Texas at this big Percussive Art Society convention. And I see this band, this all-star band playing in the lobby. And by the way, I quit drinking alcohol this night because my dad, I said, Dad, I'd finished all my clinics and speeches and the whole bit. And they have a margarita machine, drip, frothy, icy margarita. Dad, let's have a margarita. Great, okay. So we have a margarita. Half an hour later, let's have another margarita. My dad says, well, I'll have one more margarita with you. Then I'm going to go up to the room. We had two queen beds. I'm going to go dig some hockey because we're from Detroit, and you love the Red Wings, right? So my dad has his second margarita, goes up to the room, watching hockey, falls asleep. I decide to have 4 margaritas. And then El Gringo decides to sit in. No, I take that back. I knew I was kind of like, ooh, the room is spinning. And Giovanni Hidalgo, pretty good conga player. He's playing congas. Horacio El Negro Hernandez is playing drum set. And Carl Peraza from Santana is playing timbales. And Giovanni goes, Bissonette. No, Horacio says, Bissonette. I said, no, thanks. I'm not going to sit in. I've had 4 margaritas. He's like, I've had 10 rum and cokes. I said, yeah, but you're from Cuba. And so Giovanni comes over, picks me up, puts me on the drum set. Oh, no. And there were all these little kids. It's like drum lines, percussion ensembles, high school kids, college kids. And they're just doing things like, even though there's clave going on, they're doing things like, 1, 2, 3. And they're just riffing off, doing all this crazy stuff. It doesn't really matter where the clave is if you're just playing double bass, like Thomas Huckett with Meshuggah. It works over any clave, right? So I sit down, I'm going to play, after 4 margaritas, what Jimmy Brantley showed me last week. And it's a 2-3 rumba clave, and it goes like this. And I'll even do this. And then he even put a bass drum in like this. So I start doing that, and I'm going, yeah, man. Carl Peraza is over here playing timbales. There's a jam block, those red LP jam blocks. While I'm doing that, he leans over on my jam block and starts going, oh no! I crossed the clave! You ever go to a sushi restaurant, like in Tokyo, if they're closed, they go, ha! That means we're closed. Leave. Get out of here. We're closed. If you cross the clave with the Cuban band, it's like, ah! Punish. So I'm just like, no. If all I had to do was listen to the bongo bell, and I would know that's 1, 2. But I was so, yeah, man, I looked this. I just slithered off the drums. And this other little 13-year-old kid got up. Great, man. I got on the elevator. I pushed the up button, 28th floor, put my key in. There's my dad. And the Red Wings win. They beat the Chicago Blackhawks. And I go in and I close the bathroom door. What do you see when you're sitting on the toilet in the bathroom? A mirror. There's a mirror, and I'm looking at myself, and my eyes are like, hey. And I had a newborn son at home, and I said, my son is never going to see me tipsy. I mean, 4 margaritas, it could have been worse. I wasn't like, "Argh," but I still quit drinking that night because I said, I'm never going to do that again. So a year later at the NAMM show in Anaheim, who do I run into as I'm getting my tickets for registration? Carl Peraza from Santana. Hey, Carl. Hey, Bissonette. I said, I haven't seen you since the Dallas Percussive Arts Society jam. He goes, yeah, what planet were you on with that clave? So take your clave seriously. Listen. Find out where it is. Okay? Dave, I know that was a long answer to a great short question, but styles do relate. Yes. We have another question. Noah, in the front row. If you're bored, we only have 20 minutes left. What is your name?
Hi, my name is Mark.
Mark.
Yes, actually, I wanted to take a second. Thank you. I don't even know if you remember this. About a year and a half ago, you and Ringo were filming a music video in Woodland Hills, and I was your waiter, and I didn't know that you had any affiliation with professional music, but we had struck up a conversation about music, and it was maybe 30 minutes. We were talking about drum influences and this and that, and rhythms, melodic songwriting. And you
was
asked
that
me,
at the public school restaurant?
The BJ's.
Which one?
BJ's.
BJ's. That was Woodland Hills. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Promenade.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
I know.
And we talked for a while, and songwriting came up. We were talking about great songwriters, this and that, and you said, "What's your favorite drummer?" And I said, "Ringo Starr." And you said,
remember.
What do you like about Ringo? And I said, beautiful melodic songwriting, and I got into a bit of the theory.
Yeah,
and
Mark.
You had said that you were Ringo's drummer, and I said, you're shitting me, if you remember. And then you kept calling me the "you're shitting me" guy for like the rest of the time. But,
I remember.
Yes, I wanted to thank you because it was very kind of you, and we had a great conversation. But I also had a good question for you.
So
as well.
do you go to school here?
No, I don't.
Or did you still live in the valley in Woodland Hills?
Yes.
You came all the way out here from my clinic?
Yes.
And you're in the front row.
Thank
How about
you.
a hand for Mark?
Thank
You're
you.
shitting me.
Thank you.
No,
Great
sorry.
to see you again. Thank you. But I wanted to ask, coming up, so I'm not just a drummer. I do songwriting and music production.
Not just a drummer. What does that mean?
No, I don't mean.
Oh, Mark, you were my friend for a while there, but now I'm not just a drummer. I'll tell you, I get no respect at all, you know. Rodney Dangerfield, I don't just play the drums, you know. No, I'm kidding with you. I'm joking.
Honestly, I'm very
Kinda.
much a basic drummer. I'm not all that great. But so much respect to great drummers here. I'm absolutely
You're
out of my league.
backpedaling, man. I love
Yes,
it.
but I get caught up a lot in songwriting and things with creativity, a bit of overthinking what you're doing at times and
Yeah.
getting caught up in overthinking. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced that coming up as well. How do you avoid overthinking while trying to come up with, say, signature licks,
Oh, Mark,
original material?
that is a great question. You know,
Thank you.
as a songwriter, you probably play guitar, keyboards, right? Different stuff? Basic, but you're a songwriter. The biggest dilemma, I don't really let it become a problem, but the biggest dilemma in doing recording sessions or demo sessions with songwriters is demo love. And I'm sure you know about demo love. How do you get your drum programs? Do you push them, or do you get loops, or do you? MIDI drums?
Acoustic kit that's converted to MIDI.
Okay.
So,
you play into that.
Yes.
And so, but the parts you play into that, the more you listen to them, the more you love them. And when you do a session and somebody comes in and says, I got this great idea, you might go, okay, that's a great idea, but I really like what I had. Any session drummer that's worth their weight should respect Mark's song demo. And that's what I was saying. The first take I always do, I swear to you, if I did a session for you and you were there, or even if you were on Zoom, I would say, man, I like your demo. And I would write out, it would take, a couple listens, but I'd write out the kick and snare. And unlike a lot of young transcribers these days where everything stems up, kick drum stems up, snare stems up, tom stems up. You look at it, it's kind of like, wait, I grew up with kick drum stems down, snare stem up, tom could be stems up or stems down with circles around them, crash cymbals, X's with circles. Anyway, there's a certain nomenclature, a legend that I like to do, but I can write out a chart for Mark's demo pretty quickly, and I promise you, the first take would be me playing what your MIDI drums did, but with real drums and real cymbals by a real human with a great engineer and a great room. So that's take one. Take two, I would really listen to your bass parts and your guitar parts and your vocals, most importantly. And one of the things about Ringo is he never fills, instead of wanting drum charts, because he doesn't read none of the Beatles read music, but he reads words. So a lot of times he'll just ask for lyric sheets. The only gig I was ever fired from, to be honest, was Stevie Nicks, because she said, would you like my lyric sheet? And I said, oh, I'm good. Don't say that. You want their lyrics because that's how you're going to play around their lyrics. I thought, well, I got my drum chart. I know what Mick Fleetwood did on this, and I know what Russ Kunkel did on this. Bad idea. Ask for lyric sheets. Don't cover up Mark's vocals. The vocals are the most important thing. When I hear drummers talk about gospel chops, Modern Drummer a couple years ago had a cover story, The Drummers of Gospel Chops. And I went, what the heck is gospel chops? I even did a festival. Vinnie Colaiuta and Zorro and Gerald Hayward and a bunch of us, we went to this Drummers for Jesus festival where Christian drummers, we all just played. And then they said, well, play some gospel chop stuff. And they all said, the gospel, if you're playing at a church worship band, the gospel is the word of God. And you're singing Amazing Grace, right? Amazing Grace. How sweet. If you're covering up the words, what's gospel about that? So drummers shouldn't cover up the words of any song. It's like Miles Davis. The trumpet's playing the melody. Respect the melody. Don't just cover it up with drum parts that you think are going to be cool. So in answer to your question, I would try to come up with parts from your vocals, your hook. I always ask what the title of the song is. Do you realize that a lot of musicians, especially younger musicians, if I say, oh, go back and let's start from the chorus, they'll go, oh, where's the chorus? Here's a hint, and this might sound ridiculous, but the chorus is usually the part of the song where they say the title. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. The title of the song is usually the chorus. And the verse is usually where they're telling the story. The B section is a little change in the story, and the chorus, say the song is, today is Thursday. And the song's called Thursday. Okay, so when they get to the part, Thursday is a great day. I'm making this up. But today the sun was shining. It's been raining for weeks. I got in my car and I took the 101 to Pasadena. And then the B section. When I got here, Marcelo said, hey, bro, I got a parking space for you. Come on in. We're going to do a fun drum clinic. All these drummers came out. All these musicians from all over came out. And we're having a blast because it's Thursday. That's the chorus, right? So listen to the words first. As a drummer, as a musician. Drummers are musicians. As a musician, yeah, bro. Listen to the words. Listen to the parts. Listen to the rhythm. You know, you don't always have to have your bass drum in sync with the bass player. Boom, 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 boom. Sometimes it's cool. Sometimes you don't. You just want to play beats like. I like double pedal because a lot of times I'll play. And I'll play along with. Play in unison, but listen to the bass, listen to the guitar, listen to the vocals, and make your parts musical. Like Ringo, the drummer that you said. How about a hand that you even said that Ringo is your favorite? I love it. My favorite song drummer. Thank you, Mark. Anyway, good. We have time for a couple more. Yes. Don't be shy.
Hi, Greg. How are you? This is Ruben.
Ruben.
Yeah, I'm a live sound engineer. I've actually mixed quite a few shows of yours, one of them being with Andrea Bocelli. in Italy.
You mixed the Bocelli show in Italy?
Live, yes.
With Humberto Gatica?
Exactly. I was with him.
You were there?
Yeah. And then 10
And that
years.
show almost didn't happen because of the wind. And the wind was going to blow over these big cranes, but it happened.
It was crazy, but it went on, and we had some difficulties, but the way you drummed and how it projected, your drums with the orchestra, with Andrea Bocelli's vocals, everything. I mean, it goes exactly what you were just saying. And also, 10 years ago, we crossed paths in Beijing, and I was your sound guy there too.
For which show?
In Beijing, your drum clinic in Beijing.
Man, Ruben, what were you doing in Beijing?
I was doing a sound installation over there.
Wow.
And so I did a few shows over there too.
Well, I got to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
So how did you end up getting the David Foster, Humberto Gatica thing in Italy for Bocelli?
It happened to be that I work with a local rental company.
In Tuscany.
They're from, near there in Tuscany, correct. And I was just very lucky to be available and to be working with such a great crew. And it was just fantastic. I'll never forget that.
You remember Dean Parks on guitar, David Foster?
David, I mean, everybody was just all-star.
Nathan East?
Yeah, Nathan East.
You remember Andrea Bocelli's wife? It was good cop, bad cop. You don't remember this?
No.
He was just so cool and like, yeah, this is great. And then they stopped. The camera people stopped for a second to reload.
It was crazy, yeah.
And she flipped out,
Yes.
man. We have 2,000 of Andrea's friends here. You cannot stop. And the guys from England, we have to reload the cameras or the rest of the world won't see this. No, you cannot stop. And he's just going, whatever she says.
And it was.
That was uncomfortable.
It was one.
You remember
of those,
that?
Yeah, it was one of those shows that we just thought it was just not going to happen. It was just like so many factors, especially like you said, wind and so many other things, technical stuff. But everybody pulled together, and it was magical after all.
Wow,
Yeah.
Ruben. I remember we stayed near the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yeah.
And then I remember the next day I had a gig with Spinal Tap at Wembley Stadium for Live Earth. 80,000 people, the opening band, like the first book of the Bible, Genesis, Phil Collins, Chester Thompson, Dave Grohl, Taylor Hawkins, Chad Smith, Roger Taylor from Queen. We're all watching Phil Collins. He turns around and goes, what is this, a drum clinic? And we all said, yes! And he and Chester played, and then the Foo Fighters played, and Metallica, the Chili Peppers, Madonna, and all the bass players came out and played with Spinal Tap on which song? Big Bottom. 18 bass players. But I remember not going to sleep that night after the Bocelli gig, show, and I got a cab to the Pisa airport, and I just slept on the plane from Pisa, Italy to London, Heathrow, and the black cab. I slept. All of a sudden I woke up and we're at the Dorchester. The guys in Spinal Tap are walking out. Come on, Skippy Scuffleton. Ah! And we went to Wembley and we played. What a couple of days that was. That was Ringo's birthday, July 7th, 2007. And the iPhone had just come out. And Nathan East came into the catering and he goes, I have it. We all said, you have what? He says, it. What? The iPhone. What's an iPhone? It's the first series of iPhones. It was like the iPhone 1. So Ruben, great to see you, man. And Beijing. Wow. I remember that.
I'll show them to you later.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you, man. That's so cool. And so where do you live now?
Right here in Chino now.
And you teach here?
Yeah, Chino. No. I have a sound company here now.
Okay. Very good. That's pretty darn impressive. Thank you for being here. Okay, we have a whopping 10 minutes left. Anything else anybody wants to discuss? Yes, right down here. Thank you. Sitting down right here, Noah. Oh, we have one over here. Sorry.
Hey, bro. Charlie. I'm not a musician, but I'm a fan of music. Will you elaborate on Yankee Rose, your drumming part? Love
Wow,
it.
thank
That's
you.
one of the songs that never get old for me. Thank you.
For me too, thank you. I remember where I was when that song came on the radio. It was 1986. I had a Honda Civic Wagon. I'm tooling down the 405 towards the airport. And KMET, before that went away, all of a sudden, Steve Vai's guitar and the bass drum, and Billy Sheehan's bass, boom, 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 and David Lee Roth. Wow, what? Yeah. Well, I'm talking about a Yankee Rose. And then the and I remember when we shot that video, we went out to Riverside to the fairgrounds, and we had this huge crowd, and we played it, and we shot that video with all the lights. It was my first time ever doing a full-on rock MTV video. What an amazingly fun 7 years that was, from 85 to 92. And a lot of it took place right here in Pasadena. So that was our first single from the Eat 'Em and Smile album. The second single was Going Crazy, but the second song started with a little drum solo. It went like this. Shy boy, and that song was so much fun. And there was this big break in the middle where Steve Vai and Billy Sheehan, and then 4 snare hits took you back in. Bucka shy boy. On the record, live it was bucka shy, but on the record just 4. Ted Templeman produced it. Jeff Hendrickson engineered it. We did the first half of the album at a place in Berkeley, California, Northern California, called Fantasy Studios. Here's a little prayer story for you. So I'm off the road with Maynard Ferguson. I've been praying for years, God, help me get a gig with Maynard Ferguson. And I, by the grace of God, get the gig. My next set of prayers was, help me get a gig. Like, I love rock. I don't want to be labeled as a big band guy for the rest of my life. Only I'm in LA. You got to do everything. And I love rock even more than jazz. Help me get a rock gig like Journey, Genesis, or Van Halen. Well, whip out your driver's license. Alex Van Halen's the drummer. Hello. Journey, my good friend Steve Smith, he came to our Maynard sound check. I went to the Journey sound check in 1983, and he goes, oh, you can play my drums, but hold on, this guy, our opening act's got to sing a song. I said, who's your opening act? Oh, a new guy from Canada, Bryan Adams. Cuts like a knife. Nobody knew who he was then. So Steve Smith's in Journey, Phil Collins, Genesis, and Alex Van Halen, Van Halen. David Lee Roth leaves Van Halen, starts a new band. I get the gig. We go up to Fantasy. Steve Perry comes in the next morning. We had just cut. And he, before David Lee Roth came in, he goes, that's a cool version of Tobacco Road. He looks at me and he goes, we're recording next door. You want to try out for Journey? I go, what? Steve Smith's the drummer in Journey. He goes, no. Steve Perry fires Steve Smith. That was a mistake. They'll never find him again. Then he came back years later. I go, well, I'm in David Lee Roth's band now. He goes, but you could maybe be in Journey. I'm in David Lee Roth's band, but we're looking for, I was like, watch what you pray for, you know? So anyway, that was my memory of that. Then we did the second half of that album in New York City at the Power Station, where Tony Thompson, you know, songs like Something Like It Hot. I always thought Robert Palmer must have had a writing block, because he's like, Something Like It Hot, Something Like It Hot. Anyway, we did that album, part of the album up there. Yankee Rose was there. Big Trouble, Ladies Night in Buffalo. I'm Easy with a big band. That was super fun. But thank you for mentioning that song, Yankee Rose. That was fun.
Those two records, I love those two records.
Thank you so much. Skyscraper was so much fun. We did that at Capitol. Those studios are being revamped, and hopefully they come back. I went by Capitol Records yesterday, and thank God it still says Capitol Records, because you never know these days what's going to get torn down. But Skyscraper was cut there, and some of the overdubs were Conway Studios on Melrose. And we also did that song Damn Good up in Chatsworth at a place called Doug Perry's place, Chatsworth. And I forget the name of that studio. I'll think of it. But anyway, that was a fun record too. Skyscraper.
You guys at the forum on that tour, the skyscraper tour, and it was great.
What a fun time that was.
It was a great show.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes.
I'm a big fan of some of the early avant-garde jazz musicians like Don Cherry, Cecil Taylor, Roscoe Mitchell, Albert Idler, and a lot of early jazz came from an improvisational strategy. And many early jazz players were self-taught and didn't have opportunities to go to school. Of those that I've listed, are you a fan of any of those kind of avant-garde jazz players? And if you were to like sit in on a dream session of something in that kind of era, what would be your improvisational strategy, not being from like the purely like your written kind of pre-thought jazz standards?
Wait, thank you. You mentioned Cecil Taylor, right?
Yeah.
I love Cecil Taylor, and I listened to so much Cecil Taylor when I was in college, and Charles Lloyd, and drummers that just played, like you said, avant-garde. And we used to have sessions back in Denton, Lily, where they weren't recording sessions. In fact, I have a session tomorrow at 10 a.m., and if I'm late, my therapist will be pissed. Bad joke. But anyway, we had these sessions, but they weren't recording sessions. They were just jam sessions. And some of those sessions would be, we wouldn't call them, hey, this is going to be an avant-garde session, but you'd show up. I had a little Camco kit, a little Gretsch kit with an 18 and, 14-inch floor tom, a little 18-inch kick. And you never knew what you were going to play. But depending on the musician who organized the session, he would say, okay, now we're just going to play free. And you would just close your eyes. You wouldn't think about anything. Terry Bozzio, one of my heroes, once said at a PASIC convention, somebody asked him, Mr. Bozzio, what do you think about when you play? What did you think about during that solo? And Terry said, I don't think. I let go and I let God. I turn this off and I turn this on and I just play. And that's Terry Bozzio, right? So these people would say, look, we would sometimes turn off the lights and light a candle. I know that sounds kind of new agey, whatever, but we would just get into just not thinking about anything. And somebody would go, and the other guy would, and just all these different sounds, and we would just play for like an hour. And then we'd go, okay, that was fun, see you next week. One of the first sessions I did in LA was for the guitar player from The Doors, Robbie Krieger. So I show up with my drums. I was like 22 years old. And my friend Bob Birch recommended me to the sax player, Gary Meek, and we went to Robbie Krieger's house, and he had a whole studio. And I said, so what do you want to play? And he goes, I don't know. We're just going to play. And that's another word for saying avant-garde, free, no rules, nothing written out. And I remember Bob saying, what key do you want to play? And he goes, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about what key. And I'm thinking, what style? He says, we're not going to talk about anything. We're just going to play. And we played for 2 hours. And he wrote us each a check. And I didn't see him for like 30 years. And about 5 years ago, that album came out. And Vinny Colaiuta is on a couple things, different drummers. Some of the stuff was just free. But you think about the Doors, no bass player, the keyboard player playing bass, Jim Morrison, poet, just wanted to, break on through to the others. That you think about some of those songs. Ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba, ba 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 ba. They're just jamming. And some of the songs speed up and slow down. It doesn't matter. It's the Doors. It's its own style. So I love avant-garde music. I love just try that one time. Just get a group of musicians together and don't talk about anything. Just start playing. See what happens. Record it or not. One of the avant-garde clinics I went to in 1977 was Gary Burton, a great vibist. And he said, I don't like to record anything ever, except if I do an album and they have mics up and the album comes out, because when I play something, I want it to just be out there in the universe. Like, whoa. He said, and I don't listen back to gigs. One of the ways that I practice is I listen to gig tapes. I remember David Lee Roth coming on the tour bus one time, and I was listening to a cassette I had made from the sound guy. He'd give me cassettes every night. And Dave said, "What song is that?" I said, "That's the guitar solo, Steve Vai's guitar solo in Jump." He said, "That's not Jump." I said, "No, that's how fast you want it. And it shouldn't be that fast." He goes, "Okay, bro, I won't say speed it up anymore." I like listening to gig tapes. That's how you work on your time, your groove, if you're rushing, if you're dragging. Gary Burton never, ever, ever liked to listen to recordings of things he'd done unless it was a pressing for an album, because he just felt that way, that organic way. So thank you for asking that question. That was cool. Okay. It is now 10:01, and the clock on the clubhouse wall is saying, "Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together." Who remembers that? "Just to have a laugh or sing a song. And before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long." And she'd wiggle her ear so her grandmother back east would know that everything was okay. Anyway.
Gregg, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, Marcelo. Thank you to the Los Angeles College of Music. Thank you to my drum company, Dixon, my cymbal company, Sabian, my sticks, Vic Firth, LP Percussion, and DW pedals, and direct sound headphones that David and Michael are going to share, right? Who's got them Who's got them first? You, Michael. Okay. Thank you all very much. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.